Imagine making $182 per minute. That's roughly $1.8 million every week and $95 million every year. Do you want to know how? Just write 7 best-selling novels, translate them into more than 80 languages, and don't forget to make sure that those books are turned into movies and later a billion-dollar franchise. Also, make sure that those books completely change pop culture as we know it and be the reason why some people read at all. You're probably thinking this is impossible, but it's not. J.K. Rowling did it. Her books defined a generation. They gave people all over the world the inspiration to write and the motivation to read. She overcame her struggles to show the world that it's never too late to make your dreams come true. So, wave your wands, grab your brooms, and fly into the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Lumos. We'll start by shedding light on where it all began. It was July 31st, 1965 in southwest England when Joanne Rowling was born. Joanne had a decently happy childhood, although she was often teased at school. As a teen, her mother was diagnosed with MS, or multiple sclerosis, which she sadly passed away from when Joanne was 25 years old. After her mother's death, Joanne moved to Portugal to be an English teacher. In Portugal, she had a boyfriend and became pregnant with their child. The two married in 1992, but sadly, she suffered a miscarriage. A little while later, she gave birth to another child, but after only 1 year of marriage, she and her husband got divorced. Thus, she moved back home to raise her child alone. With no job and no money and no one to turn to for help, Joanne fell into a depression, and it was so terrible, she often considered ending her own life. But instead of acting on this despair and negativity, she turned to what she was best at, what saved her life: writing. She often wrote on napkins, paper scraps, and once even on a barf bag. For years, she had been collecting notes and pieces of a story that she put together to write a manuscript, and she called it Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, known in the US as Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. She went from publishing company to publishing company to publishing company, each one rejecting the book. It took a while until somebody finally said yes. It was a small publishing house in London called Bloomsbury that agreed to publish it. Their only condition was that she use a pseudonym. They decided that her feminine name, Joanne, would not have appealed to younger boys, who were the target audience for the book. And she chose to write under the name J.K. Rowling. The J was for Joanne, and the K was for her grandmother, Kathleen. According to an article written by Vox for the book's 20-year anniversary, it was Scholastic that bought the US publication rights. They paid $105,000, which was a large, unprecedented amount at the time. Scholastic had so much faith in Rowling's book, they even paid extra for marketing and publicity. Ads for Harry Potter were seen from grocery stores to magazine covers. Several hundred copies of the book were released and sold in 1997. By the time the second book was released in 1998, there were people waiting in lines at their nearest bookstores just to get a copy. J.K. Rowling's story became an international phenomenon. She wrote 5 more books for a total of 7. Movies were made, readers became fans, merchandise was sold, a theme park was built, and Harry Potter became a household name. J.K. Rowling went from unemployed to multi-millionaire in the span of 5 years. In 2004, she became the first female author, the first author of all time to become a billionaire. Reductio. Let's shrink this famous story down. Put in the simplest way, there was an orphan named Harry Potter. When he turned 11 years old, he found out that he was a wizard and that it was his destiny to save the entire wizarding world from the Dark Lord Voldemort. Harry attends Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to improve his magical skills, where he meets his 2 best friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. They meet a few more friends along the way, and at the end of the series, spoiler alert, Harry is able to stop Voldemort and bring peace once more to the wizarding world. It's an incredible story, and I encourage everybody to read these books. Alohomora, the story of Harry Potter, unforgettable and timeless, unlocked many changes in children's literature, from a day-to-day basis to an even bigger picture. For starters, the books became mythbusters in that they disproved the common belief at the time that kids don't have enough attention to read big books. In reality, they do, as long as the content of the book itself is fun and engaging for the kids to read. However, the books also appeal to adults. In a 2017 article by the Boston Globe, Margaret Willison explains that the series made it okay for adults to like children's books, as opposed to it being somewhat embarrassing and fully creepy. But not only were the books mythbusters, they were also influential trendsetters. Get in line, Kim Kardashian. After the Harry Potter movies were filmed, book-to-movie franchises became all the rage. To name a few examples that followed Harry Potter, there was The Hunger Games, Twilight, The Fault in Our Stars, and countless others. Furthermore, the series made fan fiction writing one of the most popular writing techniques for authors to be. While fan fiction was already a pretty common thing, there were wide gaps between the releases of the books that inspired many to start predicting what would happen next. And soon, they made their own alternate versions of the story. Thus, fan fiction. Additionally, the series influenced the New York Times to make a children's division of their bestseller list. This was a result of the first 3 Harry Potter books ranking in the top 3 spots from 1999 to 2000. Confundus. While the series disproved and inspired, it also brought controversy. Several schools across the US have declared the books banned from their libraries because they talk about witchcraft, which was believed by some to invite the devil. So the books weren't only placed in the New York Times bestseller list, they were also placed in the American Library Association's banned books list. And that wasn't all. In 2007, after the final Harry Potter book had been released, J.K. Rowling revealed that Professor Dumbledore, one of the main characters, is homosexual. While some fans were pleased at this news, others questioned why it had not been mentioned before. In other words, they wanted Dumbledore to be openly gay, but he never was. And while J.K. Rowling has no apparent problem with homosexuality, she's recently come under fire on Twitter for her transphobic comments. However, people have been able to separate the writing from the writer. Wingardium Leviosa. The story of Harry Potter has also uplifted people, even though these controversial topics and arguments are still alive today. One example is the sport of Quidditch. In the books, this sport takes place by flying on brooms. With a broom still in between your legs, you can use volleyballs, dodgeballs, and a tennis ball to recreate the game on the ground. And now it's an internationally played sport. Speaking of international, there are universities around the world where you can study the Harry Potter universe, even in some colleges here in the US. It's clear that throughout the last 23 years, Harry Potter has impacted many, many people. Probably the biggest way was that it changed the way that some people read. Generations of kids have grown up with Harry Potter being their motivation to read more. The famous actors, aspiring authors, debaters, and speech givers like you and me have discovered how to escape our world and enter a new one through reading. And Harry Potter helped make this happen for many people. This story has relatable themes like courage, coming of age, friendship, family, and even death. The way that Rowling uses these themes to connect the readers with characters as odd as Luna Lovegood or as fantastical as Dobby the house elf, it's something truly spectacular. Imagine that. All of this came from a single mom in her 20s, depressed and writing on whatever paper material she could find. Who would have thought that her story of an orphan wizard would end up changing the world? from everyday beliefs to school libraries to the New York Times to individual readers everywhere. J.K. Rowling has showed us all that, like she wrote herself in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, it matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be.